from deal to deal. I can talk from experience. I have no deal that has worked out exactly as planned or exactly like we intended, because things change and things shift. Past performance is not an indicator of future performance. It's kind of just rolling into that past statement I just made. And all information presented is based on my personal experience that I've gone through, and I'm just here to share it with you. But be forewarned, real estate investing carries substantial levels of risk, and our job as operators and investors, and your job as potential operators and investors, is to mitigate that risk. And that's done through processes and experience and all of the things that we're going to talk about today. So I hope that you guys got your seatbelts on, because we're going to blast through a whole bunch of crazy information, and we're going to do a deep dive into what the strategy, the art and science of the stuff we go through day in and day out. And so who are you, is my question. We've typically got two types of viewers that are sitting here on the other side of the camera and looking to gather information from us. And the first are those looking on the how to get involved in the processes, and how do you build your business. And if you want to be a developer, or you want to invest in real estate and you want to be active, that's okay. We're here to share that information with people like you, and to support you, and to make sure that you're making the right decision. So don't be scared if you're not here to invest in us or invest in anything that we have on our table. It's just to help you make the right decisions. We love to share. We want to continue doing that, and we want people to be successful. It's what I truly care about, and you'll find that out the more you get to know me. Second, those are looking to invest, and there's passive investors out there that are looking for great deals and looking to put their money into safe and secure real estate investments. And this is not only, of course, for us to present our deals. We're open curtain. We have deals and we have investments, and we're constantly looking for partners. So there's no shame in our game either. We're out constantly looking for people to add to our team and add to our investor pool, so that we can continue doing our business and continue to operate. So of course, we're going to have a pitch at the end and throughout all of our presentations, but whether you're looking to invest or whether you're looking to perform, all this information is going to be applicable to you. And we're always open to be doing this. So a little bit about myself. That long-winded sort of description of who I am basically breaks down to, I've got humble beginnings. I'm 39 years old. I'm a husband and a father of 4 crazy kids who, good or bad, are definitely taking after me, and they've got a lot of energy, and it's a lot of fun. I've built and sold a welding company. That's where my roots were always. Growing up was in the welding industry. In 2011, I founded a welding company in the lower mainland of Vancouver, lower mainland of BC. I sold that company about 3 years ago to be more involved in the business. I'm the current president of Top Down Investments, and my team and I have raised a ton of private equity. We've worked in the trenches. We've been involved in a lot of aspects of this business. And while doing all of that, we've been able to build a large real estate portfolio that includes single family, industrial and development land, multifamily buildings, etc. And we're looking for more presence in the development, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. But where did it all start? And where did the beginnings come from? I wanted to share this with you because it's important for you to understand why I'm involved in real estate and what could potentially get you involved, and where I started. And that picture right there is a picture of my very first investment property that I bought back in 2004 when I was 21 years old. And I bought that with a friend from high school, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But when I was growing up, I hated school. I did not do well with attendance. I just wanted to grow up. I just wanted to be involved in the bigger picture. I grew up with very little money in the southwest area of Calgary, Alberta. And there was a registered apprenticeship program that we had back then, and I'm pretty sure they still do, but it allowed me to fix both of those problems. I saw a problem and I found a solution, and the solution allowed me to start an apprenticeship program at the young age of 14. I was able to make some money, and I was also able to miss half the school while doing it. Now, I didn't sacrifice my education because I was getting way more credits doing what I was doing than I would have just staying in regular high school. But that was really the beginning of entrepreneurship, if you will, because I was breaking the mold. There wasn't many kids that were doing that. I was making money, And I was also hanging out with my dad's friends back then, and my dad's friends, like I said, we didn't have much money. And the one thing that resonated with me the most talking to them was that if they could have done one thing different, just one thing in their entire life, it would have been to buy a house. And I kind of, I remember that very, very clearly. It's a very vivid memory of mine when I was young, and it was about when I was 15 years old. And one of my dad's good friends said that to me, and I questioned that, and I was like, why would he say that? Why would he say that out of all the things in life he would have done differently, that was the one most important thing? And then I started looking at my surroundings and the lifestyle that we were living and the lifestyle that the person that said that was living. And it wasn't where I wanted to be. It was living paycheck to paycheck, out there scrounging for money, looking for the next opportunity, having limited amounts of time left in life to be able to really enjoy the things you wanted to. And that stood out to me. And ever since that moment, I had one main focus, and that was to get into real estate, because I was like, well, if these guys are telling me that the one thing they would have done different was to buy a house, well, first thing I'm going to do is buy a house. I'm going to solve that problem. So I went out and I went to a friend of mine in high school at the time, and I said, hey man, like he was the same as me, young worker, had RSPs, like coming out of high school, he was into apprenticeship, like solid worker. He was also Dutch, so that helped because he was really good at saving money. And I went to him and I said, hey man, I want to do a real estate deal. Like I want to buy a house. Are you interested in doing that? And he's like, heck yeah. Like why would we do that though? And I was like, well, I think it's going to change our lives, and it's, all the adults do it, so why can't we? And he was like, yeah, sure, I love it. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you. Well, next thing I know, I got a phone call from his parents, and his parents called me up and were like, hey, this is so-and-so's parents and want to know why the heck you're talking to our son about giving you money. And I was like, they're like, we want to have dinner. So I sat down and I had dinner with them, with my friend and his parents, and they kind of interrogated me at the table to figure out what I was all about and why I was asking for money. And I just laid it out. I said, look, my dad's friends when I was young told me that the biggest mistake they made was not buying real estate. I don't want to have those issues. I want to get into real estate. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great opportunity. Your son and I have aligned goals, and we have money, and we can do it. So I think we should. I think we should consider it. And, they kind of looked at each other. That's how simple the conversation was. And they looked at each other, and they're just eyeing me up and looking me up and down. And I wasn't really sure what they were going to say. And next thing I know, they're just like, yeah, we approve. We also think it's a great idea. And that was a life-changing moment for me. But it was also my very first partnership. And so the art of that deal was really just, putting the deal together, talking to my partner. I was raising capital. Little did I know I was raising private capital, and I was talking to my friend about doing it, and I was forming a partnership. These were all very cool things. And that started 2001. So we're talking, 19 years ago that happened. And fast forward to today, we're a real estate development. Like, what is Top-Down Investments? We're a real estate development company. We partner with private equity partners. We're looking for private equity partners that bring money to the table to partner with us. We put in some money as well, and we put in some sweat equity, and we work the deal. We've got the ability to work the deal, and the private equity partners are looking for people like us, and that's what we do. We partner so that we can grow and exponentially grow, so we're not limited to our own capital. And we started renovating tired and worn out apartment buildings. That's kind of where we cut our teeth. And the costs and regulations over the past 5 years have changed a lot of the things in that industry, and a lot of the numbers and the risks associated with that. And so we've transitioned into development, and that's something we've been working on for the past few years, and that's starting to come to fruition as well. And we have a very transparent organization. This is part of it. Opening our curtains, sharing with our investors, sharing with potential investors, sharing with the general public. What is it that we do? We're demystifying very complex or typically complex deals, and opening people's broadening people's horizons and understanding of what we're doing, so that they can have more knowledge and they can have open eyes when they're going into investments, and they know what they're getting into when they want to choose to do their own. And that's what we are as a company, who we are as a company. And we've successfully acquired and improved multiple apartment buildings in the Lower Mainland. We've got assets on Vancouver Island, multifamily assets, and we've got a lot of potential development land here as well, which we're going to talk a little bit more about, which we ultimately plan to develop communities with. And that's a pretty big deal, going from single family home to multifamily restoration into building communities in a pretty short amount of time. All sort of transitioned over the last 6 years, and it's pretty exciting. But we have a lot of value and we have a lot of input to share through those processes, because from the outside looking in, it might be looking like all glory, but that definitely ain't the case. And so our core values, our purpose is to generate returns for our investors, of course, but it's to maximize and create win-win-win real estate investments. And what that means for us is a win for our investors, a win for us, and a win for the community that we're doing business in. And so that's what I want to focus our purpose and our company goal on, is making sure that everybody wins. It's just so much better when everybody's a winner, because you succeed together and there's good karma and there's good support and there's just so many good things that come from it, as opposed to just being about the money, or just being about the investors, or just being about the community and other people is not good either. Because if the financials don't work out and the bottom line doesn't make sense, you're gonna have a tough time succeeding. So everybody has to win, and creating that is the art. And I want to emphasize that, because that's what we're about, and our integrity is so important moving through this process as we take on these major projects in these communities. Our vision is crystal clear. We want to become the most respected developer on Vancouver Island. And what does that mean to us? Well, there's a whole bunch of factors that come through to that. But you know, when you just have a good feeling about things, we're in communities and we're talking about density, and we're increasing density, and we're building buildings in communities where buildings aren't necessarily there yet. And we're putting plans together on vacant land that are going to change the landscape and the dynamics of communities. So it interferes and impacts with everybody's lives. The staff, the city, the councillors, the community, the neighborhoods, the people growing up in them. We all know the housing crisis that we're faced with. These are all very important pieces to the puzzle. And to be in the forefront of creating and designing communities that everybody accepts and is happy with, and not only that, but they encourage the growth, that's what I feel is going to be the key to our success. And that's what's going to get us to be the most respected developer on Vancouver Island. And we want to provide access to these investment vehicles when they're usually reserved for the wealthy, and opening up those vehicles for the general public to be able to invest in, and the communities that we're investing in, is a very important piece of that as well. And everybody talks about sustainable housing, and it's a nice word to throw out there, but there's not, it's nice to say that, and community engagement and all of those things. But on Vancouver Island specifically, this is a very sacred place to not only the communities here, but to us as a company, and even to me personally. I've moved here, I've moved my family here. We're going to be here for a long time. You know, the water is a long-term sustainable issue, as far as always tapping into the aquifer. There's limited resources here. There's also trying to keep the community feel in everything that we're doing, and sustainability as far as food goes, and housing and power, and all of these things are very key parts to creating communities that are going to be accepted here. And those are the aspects that we want to be focused on. And so we're very, very excited about a lot of the opportunities that we have, but it still comes down to making the deal work. And that's the art and the science that we're going to talk about. So I just want to remind everybody that we have the ability for you guys to ask questions. I've got my team here in the background. They're facilitating our ability to answer those questions. And at the end, we're going to be answering them. I'm not going to be doing it as like impromptu as you're sending them through, but we are going to be gathering the questions, and we'll be asking them, I'll be answering them at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, anything you want to throw out there, please make sure that you're doing that. So Mark Twain, you're going to see this slide in a lot of our presentations, if not every one of them. I don't know if I'm ever going to get sick of this slide. Buy land, they're not making it anymore. The statement couldn't be more true. And it's just a fact that the real estate is one of the most sought after assets in the entire world. and people are flocking to places to find real estate that they can acquire and they can call their home, or they can develop and they can make a business of. And we're also in one of the most beautiful places in the entire world, and that's pretty cool too. And you know, in my opinion, I believe real estate is the number one most sustainable long-term wealth generators by far. You know, short term, there's going to be ups and downs, but I've devoted my life and my business to building this business so that we can support not only our beliefs, but the people that are believing in us. And my team is there right behind me. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what it is that we're doing. But all of the stuff is focused on land acquisition and long-term wealth generation to try and solve two major problems in the lack of housing and just people's long-term wealth and their inability to really do it on their own successfully. So we're here to help with all of that. Utilizing and the leveraging creates enhanced returns, and there, you know, that's a whole nother subject. But you know, the power that you have when you own and control real estate allows you to leverage that and to continue to grow and to turn over and do more great things. And with great power and wealth comes great responsibility. And in turn, we can give back to communities, and so can you. And this could be life-changing for you and your family and everything in it. And we are an advocate of land, and it's not just because our business relies on it from a revenue generation standpoint, but it's because it's where our passion is. And we'll continue to do it for the rest of our lives, as far as I'm concerned. And of course, we put our money where our mouth is. These are the active projects that we have, 4 of them right now. 3 of them we have successfully closed on this year. 1 is yet to be closed. It's scheduled to close on November 31st. But these are 4 major developments on Vancouver Island. The one in the top right corner there, the top left with the orange squares, that's our Price Place Land Assembly. That's gonna potentially be 2 90-unit apartment building sites. The top right is the 14-acre site in Nanaimo that we'll talk a little bit more about later on. Bottom left, we've got a 6-acre industrial site in South End Nanaimo. And then on the bottom right, we've got 150 acres in the Cowichan Valley, which is just 5 to 10 minutes outside of the downtown core of Duncan, where we're working with the CVRD right now on an application for a comprehensive development plan there as well. And these are projects that we're devoted to. They're going to be life-changing for the communities, and we're just getting started. The projects that are in review right now are, we've got 50 acres on Lake Cowichan, which is a booming resort community that again is just 20 minutes outside of town. We've got a building under contract in Port Alberni, which is not only the old hotel there, but it's also got a vacant lot right across the street. Again, we think it's a very, very up and coming community, lots of potential there. That's getting back to our restoration roots. And then we're working on another big deal out in the Cowichan Valley as well. And you know, there's just so much potential in the opportunities that we're getting involved in. But each and every one of these projects are massive on their own, let alone putting them all together. And you can see the scale at which we're growing out here, and we're looking for some support, and we're going to share the journey with you guys as well so that you can see exactly what's happening. So the real estate deal now, or the real estate secret, the real secret. This was one we contemplated putting on because obviously it can send a message. It's a little bit of a joke, obviously, but it was a saying that was brought up to me from Derek in our office, and he said he worked at a car dealership way back when, and he said the guy turned to him and just said, "Hey, don't worry about your sales, kid. You lose a little bit on every deal, but we make up for it in volume." And and obviously that's not a sustainable plan. And obviously it's not our model, and I'm not making a joke out of it but there is a little bit of backhanded humor here, because it's the reality that some people find themselves in, and everybody tries to make what we do sound easy. And a lot of people and a lot of clubs and a lot of groups and everybody out there, pitch real estate like it's no big deal. Like, you just go buy land, just go buy a deal, just go buy a house, just go buy 20 of them, for crying out loud. You're going to do fantastic. Real estate always goes up. Remember, I said it's the biggest wealth generator ever. Well, that applies long term. But in the short term, if you can't make it work, that's the risk that could sink you, and it could make or break your future. And the reality is much different from an operational standpoint. And I've been through the trenches, and my team has been through the trenches, and we're still in the trenches. I'll tell you that every single time I talk to you guys. We're never out of the trenches. We're in the deals. Until I'm sitting on my rocking chair, when I'm 90 years old on the porch and investing money into young guys like me or young gals like me doing, putting that are out there doing all the work. The reality is we're going to be in the trenches the whole time. And it goes back to the kind of viewer that you are. Are you looking to put money into the deals? They're laughing at me because I said gals like me. I can see Derek's smile in the background there. But but what kind of viewer are you? Are you looking to do the deals, or are you looking to invest in the deals? And this all applies, because you got to know exactly what you're getting into. And passive versus active is a big determination of what kind of deal that you're going to be investing into. And some of you may know of a company in Saskatchewan that recently ran into some troubles, and they're a prime example of what could go wrong. And I am by no means pointing fingers or casting blame, because I have absolutely no idea the intricacies of the day-to-day operations that happened in that organization and ultimately led to their downfall and all of their investors' money at extreme risk right now. And there's a recovery plan in place that we're hopeful to see everybody pull out. But that applies. That is a model. I don't have to see the day-to-day operations to know that they were literally living that model of losing a little bit on every deal is okay because we're making it up in volume. We'll just buy more houses. Everything's going to appreciate. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Worry about it. It's not a sustainable model, and you have to know what you're doing and before you get into it. And obviously, we don't want anybody to get there, and we are putting everything in place to make sure that we are never going to get there. But I've been there myself, and so I know the struggles, and I know the reality of what can happen in these deals. That's why we're talking about it. So art and science, what does that even mean, and what does it have to do with real estate? Well, we're going to talk about it. So the art, if you couldn't tell, that's me when I'm older. And that's just because I love doing what I'm doing now, and I don't see me doing anything else. I've got my napkin out, or my my canvas out, and I'm scratching pencil onto paper, and I'm working deals, and I'm working out all the different aspects of a business deal and a real estate development deal. You've got all your value add and the napkin budget and the negotiations and talking with tenants and structuring the deal. And and my favorite part is solving problems that nobody else can solve. That's by far what gets me most excited. And so the artistic part of the deal is definitely my favorite part, because you just get to use your imagination, and no deal is the same. Never. You're never going to find a real estate deal that's exactly the same. I don't care if you're buying two residential houses side by side that were built by the same developer at the same time. Those two deals will inherently have things that are similar, but they will always wind up in different places, let alone when you're getting into more strategic and artistic development deals like we're going to talk about. And then you got the science. And as you can see, that's still me doing the stuff. The only difference is I just have less of a smile in this slide, and my brain hurts, and I'm a little frustrated because, let's be honest, it's my least favorite part. And but just as, if not more, important than the art, because it's one thing to put the art together, but if you don't have the science to back it, man, that's going to hurt. And these are all the aspects of the deal that you got to be paying attention to the most. You can draw on the paper all you want and make it seem whatever you do, but the reality is when you back that up with the science, they've got to have an alignment, and they've got to be backed by solid information that eliminates as many of the variables as you can and lowers the risk to as low of a level as you possibly can, especially when you're using other people's money. And that's been a rude awakening for me very early on in my stages, is the amount of responsibility and the burden of using other people's cash, other partners' hard-earned equity to go and do a real estate deal. Man, If you don't have the science, just stop doing it. And if you want to go spend your own money taking the risk, that's perfect. You go ahead and do that. But it's your money, your risk, and you get to decide what happens. And my team knows exactly what I mean, because for the most part, I've been the artsy guy, just putting deals together and winging it and doing what entrepreneurs do, just, having faith that everything's going to work out. And at the end of the day, I've been pretty good at putting deals together, and I've got a good gut reaction, and a lot of that's come from gaining experience. But I've also put things at risk, and things have not worked out always for me and my company and my investors. And it's usually because of a lack of the science and implementing the proper procedures and the processes to prevent the bad things from happening, or at least see them coming from a mile away. And can't stress that enough. The science is just as important, if not more important. The art's fun, the science is real. So let's work through a deal here, and let's just apply some of this stuff and see where it fits in. This deal, as some of you may be aware, is a 14-acre residential property that has a long story attached to it, and it's got a lot of art. And we're actually still we've been on this deal for 3 to 4 years now in the making, and we are still in the artistic part. We've kind of done some operational stuff. We've definitely done some science as far as due diligence goes, but we haven't really set the plan in place, and that's all part of what we're doing. But I came here 3-4 years ago to Vancouver Island when I was still operating on the mainland, and I came and I looked at this property. And it was, it was with a friend of mine, Brandon. We went and looked at this together. He found this deal. We brought it to the table. We went and talked to this seller at the time. This thing had it was an old fill site. It had a kicked over sign. And Brandon was talking to me about that at the time and just said, God, man, this guy's willing to do anything. Like, he's willing to, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he's willing to partner. He's willing to sell her finance. He's willing to just sell it to us outright. And anyway, we went and looked at the deal, and at that time, it just wasn't right for us, because we weren't in development, or we weren't even set up even close or remotely close to being ready for a development of that size. It was also on Vancouver Island when we were on the mainland. So working on a project remotely of that size was also a major challenge. And we just didn't have the right feeling about the time, so we dropped it. And I went back to the mainland, kept doing our deals out there. And then lo and behold, a couple years later, I moved back to Vancouver Island and moved my business over here and circled back. And we checked with the vendor again and reached out, and lo and behold, the sign was still there, still knocked over. I think it was a little bit more crushed. I think, a couple more dump trucks had ran over it. It was still an active fill site. There was no activity. We called them up. Yep, it's still for sale. $2.1 million it was for sale, and it had slowly climbed over the years. I think it started at like 1.7 and got to 2.1. And anyway, we went back, we made an offer at 2.1, and wouldn't you know it, the guy comes back and counters us at $2.8 million. And we were like, okay, like, what's going on here? Something's odd, that not only is this guy open to pretty much every creative option we've given, but now he's jacking the price up $700,000. A lot of people would have walked away right there. No, thanks, not going to do it. Well, we weren't like that. To me, I'm just like, man, this thing's got so many problems. I can't wait to start solving them. And that's what I did. We started digging in, and there was major issues. And local legend was that the property had environmental concerns, and there was a rumor of this road that the city wanted built, and there was like millions and millions of dollars that had to be put into the infrastructure and the potential cleanup. It was unsolvable. Everyone's saying run for the hills. And when I hear those words, when I hear that stuff, man, that's my favorite. I saw the potential. We knew the zoning was there. We knew that there was city and community support. We also knew that this was the largest undeveloped piece of land in the South End community. And that was a fantastic standout point for us, because we were like, okay, big piece of land, city wants it, community wants it. There's got to be some upside here. Like, we're going to dig into this some more. And so start with the art. This is what you do. So, we know we had a motivated seller. We looked at it and we just got to ask ourselves, okay, two major points here. What is the upside and what is the downside? Like, what do we have to risk and what do we have to gain? And then you figure out everything in between, because those two questions are really going to solve 90% of your initial due diligence right away. If the deal makes sense and you've got limited downside, that's an ideal real investment. Not all investments are like that. In fact, most aren't. There's typically a decent amount of upside, but there's also typically a decent amount of downside. And so in this particular one, we were running napkin performas and we were just kind of seeing strategically what we could do with it. But we knew that the development was coming to the area because we had just renovated 2 apartment buildings recently in the area. The napkin performa, like, the zoning was there. The zoning was there. It already has it in the medium to high density zoning in the OCP, which is fantastic. You know the city is into it. You napkin out like 400 to 800 units on this property on the high density zoning. It looks really good. The things we don't know are what are we missing? What does everybody else miss? Like, why is nobody touching this deal? And when you have a deal that seems too good to be true, it usually is. And that's what everybody says, except when it's not. And that's the challenging part, is you just don't know. You have to do the work to really narrow down and figure out what it is. So back to apply the science. Like, we had an artistic approach. We knew that the zoning was there. We saw the opportunity in my mind. I had the vision, and yes, this community wants to grow and the city supports it. But you've also got these big challenges. You've got this environmental, you've got the road, you've got the services that you got to bring in to support that kind of infrastructure. Major things to dig into. And we call these, like, when you're applying the science, we call these the deal killers, right? And these are the things that help you determine quickly whether or not you should move on from a deal. Try and kill the deal. And what I mean by that, nobody wants to kill a deal. I'll tell you that right now. The artist in the room does not want you to throw the painting in the garbage. I can tell you that, especially after they've started. And I know, because I'm the artist. I'm the one usually bringing the deals to the table and talking about this. But the reality is, you got to try and kill the deal and kill it quick. What are the major factors? Like, for instance, if the property is 2.8 million and the upside is 9 million, like we think it's going to be worth 9, and the environmental report comes in at $8 million to fix the property, that's a deal killer. You run. You just drop the deal. You're like, okay, clearly there's more cost in here than there is value, and I'm not interested in getting into liabilities and long-term issues with this project. But in our mind, it wasn't. Can we finance the property? Is there bank lending possibilities? Understanding the conditions and the concerns, i.e. talking to the city, talking about the road, talking to the engineers who have the information for the cost of building the road, talk to environmental consultants about analyzing the actual cost of cleaning up that site, get your range. They're never going to nail it down to a penny, but they're going to give you a low and a high range, figuring out what those costs look like. And how much usable land are we looking at? I said 15 or 14 acres, right? So you're like, wow, 14 acres, that's awesome. Well, we went and got an environmental consultant to come in. There's 2 different environmental consultants, by the way. One is riparian assessment, which is wetlands, and the other one is ground contamination. They're basically the 2 different kinds. So we got the wetland riparian assessment done, and lo and behold, there's 6 acres of wetland on this property. So immediately, it shrinks that property down to 8.5 acres of usable land, but that's okay. 8.5 usable acres at high density still gave us a projected value of $10 to $30 million, which is really hard to base your numbers on when you have that big of a range. But, bear with me here. These are the things that are going on in my head as we're moving through these things. Comparables to the land were very challenging to get because, like I said, there was no other land of high density of that size in that area. So it was damn near impossible to get the information from the appraisers. We could just use best guess. So we got a report done that gave us an as-if rezone value of around $8 million. Not as exciting as the $10 to $30 million, but I know that an appraiser is not going to put their butt on the line without having an actual plan backed by actual data to show what it could be. So these are the scientific aspects to getting the deal across the line. And if you still go through these things, knowing what you know and acknowledging what you don't know and applying the science, there's always a hypothesis in every deal. The hypothesis in the science is, what could this deal be? And you put a hypothesis down. You're like, I think it could be this based on what we know today. It can be high density. It can have this many units. Here's the costs. Here's the variables. Here's the controlled variables. Here's the uncontrolled variables. The real risks versus the perceived risks. The real risks are the things that we don't know, or the cost of construction and not knowing what the ground is going to be like. The perceived risks are the unknown. Is there offsite contamination? Is that contamination getting onto neighboring sites? Are there things that we don't know? What is buried in the ground? There's all of these things that just come up as you're doing a deal. And there's facts and there's feelings. And that's the art and the science. The facts are the science and the feelings are the art. You got to put them together. And then the appraisal, of course, we just talked about that, the as is and the as if completed. But knowing all that now, so we're here in this deal and we've got all these variables floating around. What now? What do we do? Well, we have found the property. We like the property. We like it very, very much. But we have a basic understanding of it. We're saying it's time to make a deal, but the lenders won't touch it because there's too much risk involved. The investors won't touch it because we don't have a clue what we're doing yet. We don't have enough data to support the plan and to actually put a proper investment package together. We have limited resources. If you recall, we weren't into development yet. That was 3 years prior. A year ago, we were a lot more into development, and we had the infrastructure, but we still hadn't gone through a complicated site like this. This is a major site for anybody to take on. Big developers would call this a challenging site. And here we are, a small organization trying to move through the weeds to try and get this deal to work. And there's inherent risks involved. And we've got no real development experience on dealing with this kind of an asset or these kind of challenges. But yet there's a deal here. There's a deal, and you have to figure out a way to try and get that deal done that works for you. I can tell you right now that if we were reliant on capital and private equity and bank financing, we would not have got that deal done. So we had to structure a deal that took all of those aspects into consideration. No lending, no investors, and no experience. So what does that mean? We needed money to finance a deal that was inexpensive long term. We needed a low amount of capital for us to be able to put our own money at risk. Like we talked about at the beginning, this is our deal, inherent risks. We wanted to put our own money, but we had limited resources. And the fact that we didn't have experience didn't scare me because we were building our experience. If you asked me to do this deal inside of 12 months, I would have said no because I knew we wouldn't have had enough time. But if you told me I had 5 years to figure it out, I can figure a lot of stuff out in 5 years, and so can you. And so that's how we structured the deal. So we lowballed and asked for the moon. And when we say we lowballed, we went in at, I think, 1.8 on a 2.1, and he came back at the 2.8 million. And it comes back, 700 grand above asking. And we're like, man, now these things got even tougher. So we countered with the deal structure that worked for us. And we actually we countered back with vendor financing. So we went back and said, look, there's a lot of risks. You know it, we know it. The market's not that hot. Nobody's coming to kick down your door for this deal. We need you to finance this deal. We need you to finance 100% seller financing. And we need you to do it for, I think it was, I can't remember at the time, I think we asked for 3 years, and we asked for some ridiculous low interest rate. And he countered, it wasn't accepted then, we countered with it, and then he countered us, but he countered us at 90% financing, 1.7% interest rate for 5 years. And he sent that back, and I was like, we thought the deal was dead because we're like, this is very rare to get those kind of terms accepted. And he sent it back. And we were just like, oh my God, we have a deal. Is this real? We looked at the paper. So we got the 90% vendor financing meant that we were getting a loan of 2.5 million provided by the seller. So there was no bank financing required. The loan to value only required 300 grand to put down as opposed to 2.8 plus closing. That was something we could manage on our own. And it was a low interest rate. And when I say low, 1.7%, like that was free money when they were giving away free money a couple years ago for 5 years. So it gave us the low carrying cost, and it also gave us the time. We needed the time to work the deal. It was fantastic. But there were still risks. But what now, right? Like what now? We got the financing, but it was key to us moving forward. We wouldn't have, the deal would have been dead right there. We would have killed it if we wouldn't have got those terms. It just wouldn't have happened. Simple as that. And so moving past that, so we negotiated amazing terms, we got all that. So now, again, back to the science. So we're like, okay, so wow, this guy's given us this phenomenal deal that works for us, but what are we missing? Get back to the due diligence. So time for the science. So we got our due diligence time. We knew we needed time. We originally asked for like 3 or 4 months, which, you know, I've been going through this process for a long time. In any kind of a big development, you're not going to get a lot of due diligence done in less than 90 days, 3 months. I don't care what anybody says. By the time you work the deal and go through the reports and get all the information you need, if you're doing it in less than 3 months, you're either moving forward without having the proper information, or you've got the cash to risk and you can make that decision on your own. We didn't have that. And the first step was that riparian assessment, and 5 or 6 acres went to the riparian area. You know, the next step was going through and talking to the city about this road and finding out what were the things that they were asking us to do, what kind of a cost that we were going to bear on this. And we found out there was no latecomers clause, which means that we couldn't apply the cost or recoup the cost from any surrounding properties down the road that tapped into the work that we were doing, which is a huge downfall. Again, it added millions to the bottom line. And then we did the actual environmental assessment, and we had to go to a phase 1 took us recommended a phase 2. A phase 2 identified schedule 2 activity, which is really bad. Just so you know, that means you're involving the government and you're getting the ministry involved to oversee your deal. And then we had to get the appraisal, and thankfully the appraisal came back at what we were doing. But all these inherent risks were big, and what we did initially, we weren't able to get those terms. I think he gave us 60 days, or maybe he did give us 90. I can't really recall, but either way, it was not nearly enough. As the environmental started to come up, it was a big issue. So we went back to him and we said, like, look, we need more time. We need more time to do our due diligence. Here's the proof. You've got environmental concerns. We've identified it. You're going to be left with a huge mess on your hands if you don't let us continue to do this, because we're willing to continue to work. And he said, okay. We earned it by not only proving that we were doing our work, but also he requested that we made monthly payments that would continue giving us the extensions that we needed. And we were okay with that because those payments were actually going against the purchase price if we closed. So we were totally okay with that. At the end of the day, we were able to get 12 months of due diligence time out of the guy who said at the beginning, absolutely not, close in 90 days or leave, is basically what we were told at the beginning. And so we verified everything we could throughout that process. And then you mix in a little bit of the art. You know, the riparian assessment still left plenty of land to develop. That wasn't a hindering factor for us. It was just the reality. But at least we had the information and we knew it. Meeting with the city and getting the road details. We actually found out that the road costs were for a neighboring property, and we were able to actually, it was adjoined with a neighboring property, and so we approached that neighboring property, and we actually wound up buying the neighboring property specifically to share the costs of this $8 million road that the city was talking about. So again, we were using artistic touches here. Okay, if it's $8 million to this project, if we buy both properties, now it's $4 million for each, and we get to share the load, and we've got 2 properties. We got 2 development properties. The environmental assessment, we didn't take face value for those. I had a third-party consultant review the information and tell me, is this real? Are these costs real? I don't want to believe that one company who did 1 month worth of work and condemned this property for a lifelong environmental recovery. Well, we got them in there, and we got the whole report turned around. Schedule 2 activity was removed. We couldn't believe it. There was no Schedule 2 activity at all. It wasn't even supposed to be in the report. We reduced the cost of the environmental by $2 million just by having someone else look at the report. That was the best $5,000 I ever spent. It was crazy. And so these things started to come back to life and bring the deal back. And we were supporting it with science, and we were supporting the future plan. And we had a focus on reducing risk and increasing value. That's what we were doing. We were also strategically postponing the closing, not only for our own benefit and pushing it out to get this deal set up so we could raise capital for it, but we knew that the market was drastically increasing at the same time. Like, there was no way that we could have got into the same property 6 months later for the same value. So strategically, we were increasing the value of the property we were reducing the costs, and we were increasing the value, and that spread kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it kept making the deal better and better and better while we applied art and science at the same time. And we got an appraisal, and that was the as-if rezone provided a window into the future value. And we got that conservative appraisal of $8 million. So we were looking at this property, okay, you know, what are the costs, subtract the costs, future value, timeline. A lot of it made sense. And that's what kept us going. But again, applying the science. So back to the science. We were investigating the zoning entitlements. We were talking more strategically, establishing our minimum and our maximum densities to help get the value that we knew the property could be once it was ready for development. We were working with the environmental engineer, like I said, to get that future testing extremely reduced. Not only reduced, it was almost damn near eliminated. And if we would have just went on what other people said and the old, you know, the legends of that in the community of what that property was, we would have walked away. We would have just walked away from an opportunity. And again, if we went in blind without applying science and just closed on the deal in 90 days like the vendor wanted us to, we would have been walking into a lot of risks and without knowing any of this information. We also found a great development consultant, and he was referred to us by good contacts in our network who spent actually 30 years at the city of Nanaimo, and also that he had been an independent consultant for 5 years, strategically working with bigger developers for these bigger community plans. So who better to ask what the city's plan is? He's got the phone numbers of the top guys in the city staff because he deals with them every day. I don't have those connections. I don't have those resources. Do you know how much time it would have taken me to get what a phone call, like one phone call with him would get me? And so we needed more support. And there's no replacement for experience. We didn't have the experience that allowed us to move through these steps quickly. We had to be conservative, and we had to take our time, and we had to know what we were getting involved with. And as my CFO, Claire, says all the time, mind the gaps. And what that means is look at where your gaps are. It's an old saying about stepping off the elevator and minding the gap in between the train and the platform. Because if you don't mind it, you're gonna step into a pitfall and you're gonna lose a leg. And nobody wants to lose a leg in the business, in the real estate industry. And so how you solve that is you surround yourself with amazing people that have the experience, that have done this before. That's the replacement. That's how you replace experience. You surround yourself with the people who have done it before, period. Okay, so we have a project. Now what? Like, we've got all of this information. And like I told you, it was a year, 1 year. We got it under contract in December of 2021. And we're now a year and a half into the project, almost 2 years into the project. We closed on the property earlier this year in March. And we've been continuing to work the deal. But like I said, we're still in the art of the deal. The art of the deal now, as far as I'm concerned, and it's the most underrated part of the deal, is structuring the deal. And this to me is the most important part when you're structuring a deal with investors and with partners, especially in a deal that you don't have the experience to really rely on to know what that process is going to look like. You've got a lot of factors to consider. Who's going to bring the ultimate capital for the development of the property or to get it to that place? Who are the partners that we're going to be bringing on? Is it an LPGP? Is it a JV? You know, who's bringing the sweat equity, or who's going to do the sweat equity? We know we are, but we know there's gaps in our own organization that we're going to have to fill to successfully move through this project. You know, preferred returns. Everybody wants to know, how much return am I going to get? When am I going to get my money back? What's the split on profits going to be? Who's going to take the risk? How many fees are we going to charge to the deal? We need to survive. Like that's probably one of the biggest downfalls, or the biggest challenges. I wouldn't say downfalls, because it was just ignorance when I was starting out in the business. But negotiating with partners on the money that we need to get out of the deal in order to successfully operate the deal, so that we don't go under, so that we can hire the staff. And if you don't know any of those things, like, you're about to step into a 14-acre rezoning and development site. How much staff do you think you're going to need for that? I don't know. We still don't actually know, because we've never gone through the length of time that this property and this project is going to bring on. But we've strategically found some partners that have been involved in the initial stages of this and ultimate development of projects. But trying to figure all that out, it's actually where we're at. And I put this slide in specifically because we're currently at this stage right now, and we're at this stage in a lot of our deals. And we've actually, I think we've got a viewer on tonight, and pardon me if I haven't, because I haven't actually seen the list, but there's a lady on here named Janet. Janet reached out to me a few months ago, actually, and she's fantastic. And I got to give her a shout out, because I'll tell you, she's been working with me through the art of the deal and the science of the deal on her own development that she's working on in Southampton in Ontario. And I'm working with her as a potential partner. I wouldn't even say potential, because she's ultimately removed subjects on the deal. She's firm, and we have an agreement that I'm going to be a partner as per her request and mine. We want to be a part of it. But we worked for 3 months on structuring the art and the science of the things we need to know, and the risks we need to mitigate, and the conversations we have to have. We went through all of the stuff that we just did, except we did it in a condensed time frame. We only had 60 days before she was going to lose the deal. And we're in the art. Like, this stuff that I'm putting up on the screen right now, you know, understanding how the deal is being put together is the most important part of an operator's job. And I've done so many different deals, and no deal has been the same. No partners have really been the same. It's changed every single time. And it's easy to say, like, put a template and a process in place for that kind of a thing, but every deal has different aspects, and you got to know what they are. And you got to give credit where credit is due for the people that are bringing certain things to the table, including your investors, and including the people that are putting their butts on the line and the boots on the ground, that are actually the ones making this deal come to fruition. And so, which is more important, the art or the science? You can argue all you want, but at the end of the day, neither one of them is more important than the other. They are both equally as important, and they're both equally required in a deal. And like I said, the artistic part of it is the hairy-fairy dreaming of what you want to do with the property, and your imagination can let you run wild. But if you rely entirely on that, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're putting yourself and your investors at risk. You're going to make some big mistakes if you're only basing it on what you think might happen. And on the vice versa, if you're just relying entirely on science, I can tell you, you'll never get a deal done. Nothing will pencil out. Because the science wants to allow for every controlled possible variable that could potentially go wrong to go wrong, and the deal still to work. You're never going to get a deal done. So there is a really fine balance in figuring out how much art are we bringing to the table and allowing to control our decisions, and what science specifically are we going to put on paper to mitigate our risks without crushing the deal. Because I'll tell you, if it was just doing the science on the 14 acres and any other deal, like I said, we wouldn't even have got it under contract. We wouldn't even have started spending money on the due diligence. And we had to spend money. We had to and you have to include both. Like, it was, my team was questioning. My CFO questions every single dollar that leaves the company. Rightfully so. That's why I hire her. Like I said, mind the gaps. That whole accounting thing, that ain't my jam. But if I didn't have that, I'd be broke by now, I promise you. And but she has to believe in me, in the art, and the fact that we have to spend money to discover those things and to find them. And if there is an agreement there and there's a happy medium, that's when you're going to find the balance in a deal, and you're likely at the end of the day going to wind up with a successful deal if those two things come together how they're supposed to. And so we usually start with some art just to get us excited. Of course, all those deals were just, me running around, going to look at deals and taking information from other people. And then we have a team in place to apply the science and to make sure that the deals work. And we have to understand what both of those things mean. So in summary, there's so many aspects to a deal. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Only experience will guide you through this process. There are so many aspects. This page could not even come close to filling up with all of the things that are involved in putting together any real estate deal. And that experience factor is so important. If you don't have it, you gotta go and get it. And that's either doing deals for free, being a part of deals for free, reading, learning, going to seminars, watching these webinars and videos to make sure that you're opening and broadening your horizon and asking yourself the questions. And if you need it now and you don't have it, pay for it. And everybody hates writing a check. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people don't like writing a check, like giving out cost, putting a cost out for information. But I'm telling you, from experience, that information will save your life. And if you don't do those things, the real cost will likely sink you or your deal, and you'll lose money. And you could lose it bad, and it's not an experience anybody wants to go through, because I've been there. I've been on the good side and the bad side. And I'm telling you, the best money I've ever spent is to spend time around the people that know what they're doing and have done it before. And you just can't buy that experience. And sometimes if you can, great, go and get it. You just got to go and do it. So you want to get involved, and do you want to get involved? And involved means anything. I'm not just talking about our deals, but if you're, again, one of the operators out there wanting to learn how to do the deals, you need to understand all of these things as well. And even the following slides, I want to go over some more details here about what kind of investors there are out there and how that applies to your business. And you got to know where you stand. And you should help ask the right questions. This should help you. This information should help you ask the right questions. And this should definitely open your brain up to doing your due diligence. Do your due diligence on me. Do your due diligence on other operators. Do your due diligence on someone pitching you a deal. Do your due diligence on the people selling you the property. Do the due diligence on your brokers and your lawyers and your accountants. Every single thing you should be doing due diligence so that you understand who you're getting in business with. And the information that I gave you should help you understand the right questions to ask, or at least some of them. And it will start heading you down a path. Every single thing I put in these slides in this webinar are all questions that you should be asking when you're getting involved into a deal. Period. There's nothing that can replace that. And if you don't want to ask the questions and you just want to trust, that's okay too. But just make sure it's someone that you're trusting, that you've done business with before, and that you've previously done due diligence on. Nothing will get you past that risk. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about investor criteria, because there are two kinds of investors out there as far as the securities world is concerned. And if you're out there looking to invest or you're looking to raise capital, these things are important for you to know. Accredited investors, those are people that really have no limits on participation. But they also have to have at least $1 million of net liquid assets, which is basically cash and securities. They either make over $200,000 a year in income, or $300,000 combined with their spouse, or they have $5 million of combined net assets. Pardon me, $5 million in net assets, which would include real estate and equity into deals. Those accredited investors can invest wherever they want, whenever they want. And there's no real limitations as far as an operator is concerned when you're dealing with accredited investors. Non-accredited investors, however, which a lot of people fall under, and it's unfortunate because it limits you as to what you can invest in, and it should limit the operators on who they can accept money from. But that means that you have to have an offering memorandum in place on your deals, which is a very lengthy, expensive document that typically you don't do for smaller deals because of the cost. But the accredited investors and the participation varies from province to province. But an investor, non-accredited investor, is anyone below that. So if you're making less than 200 grand a year, or you don't have $1 million in net liquid assets, or you don't have 5 million in net worth, then you are a non-accredited investor and you're limited to where you can put your money. And that makes it challenging when you're looking to build your wealth. I get it. I was there, and not too long ago. I'm involved in huge multi-million dollar deals, but me personally, technically, not too long ago, I was still considered a non-accredited investor because I wasn't pulling enough income out of my company to qualify me as accredited. Big deal. I'm past that now, but you get the point. So you've got a lot more restrictions, and I won't get into the details, but it varies province by province, and there's different regulations, and you really want to talk to an exempt market dealer to understand where you stand. We obviously know quite a bit about this, and so should the other operators, but we do deal with Access Capital. Access Capital has gracefully partnered with us earlier this year as a young operating business that hasn't been in the private sector very long. We're working together, and we're working with them on the deals that are applicable to the non-accredited investors, because we want to stay compliant. We want to make sure that we're not putting our business at risk. We want to make sure that the investors understand the risk that they are getting involved in when they're investing their money. And we're just planning to do this long term, and that's a scalable model for us. Clint Rogers is our exempt market dealer that we've been working with specifically on one of the projects that we're doing in downtown Duncan, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So right now, just want to show you a couple deal points on some of the things. So right beside that 14 acres that I was talking to you about is the 6 acres of industrial. That's that other piece of property that I said we bought because we wanted to share the cost of the road. Not only did we share the cost, not only did we get the cost of the road eliminated from the city in writing, so $8 million wiped off the plate, we got 6 acres that is currently zoned for industrial, and we're looking at a mixed-use industrial site. We've got it, we purchased it at $540,000 per acre, and that was because we had it under contract before the market really took off, and also we did an extensive amount of due diligence to eliminate the risks and increase the value while we were doing so, and we did the art and the science for that. But this is estimated right now at least $1 million per acre with the work and the money and the time that we've spent, and the market conditions have changed to where they are today. We're fully funded for this stage of the project, but it is one that you better keep your eye on if you want to get involved, because we are going to go to vertical construction and vertical development on this project, probably in the next, I'd say, 18 months. We're going to be building out this project, and we're going to be looking for capital for this project. But that's an accredited investor deal only. The next one, the 14 acre, is also accredited investor only at this particular moment. Not saying it's going to stay that way, but this is 8.2 usable acres, currently in planning stages right now. We're going through discovery with our partners and our consultants right now to develop a plan that we're going to be submitting for rezone coming in the spring. It's going to have some retail, commercial, multifamily, townhomes, and we also purchased this for $400,000 an acre. And again, it's got an estimated market value of $1 million per acre. We got money in the buy on these things, but we didn't have it the day we got it under contract. We had to apply the art, we had to apply the science, and we had to take the risk to go and get it. And thankfully, we're on the good side of the coin flip here, and we've got some fantastic projects that you got to keep your eyes on. And the Duncan Multifamily Land Assembly, this, attention non-accredited investors, this is a deal that we've got 5 homes in total, 3 on the east side, 2 homes on the west side. We are in the process of submitting our rezoning application. These properties are already zoned or in the OCP for medium density, and they're in the draft OCP that Duncan has been working on for over a year now for high density. So the plan was to rezone for high density and then ultimately exit or develop. We are of course, focused on the development, but that doesn't mean we're not going to exit. But this phase of the investment is just for the rezoning portion. And we've actually got a webinar to talk more about this on Thursday at 5 p.m. That's 2 days from now. This Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be presenting this particular deal in detail, and we can run through that project. But this is an extremely exciting deal. It's open to non-accredited investors, and after we are able to do business with non-accredited investors, they come into our fold and they become business associates, and they're going to be a lifelong investor. And this is the key to getting involved with us on this particular deal if you're non-accredited. So we're running through that deal, like I said, in way more detail. And go to our website, topdowninvestments.com. Register there. We don't send out spam email. We don't sell our lists. We don't do any of that crap. We just send you updates on our deals and on our investments. That's all you're signing up for. Yes, we're going to add your list to our marketing email campaigns, but that's just going to be for the deals that we're getting involved in. It's also going to be information on more webinars that are coming up, and there's going to be a lot more stuff coming down the pipe. And you better stay tuned if you're interested in the stuff that we're doing on Vancouver Island, because this is just we're not even scratching the surface of the stuff we're getting involved in. And as my little boy Charlie would say, thank you for your attention. Any questions? With his little smirk. That's actually not him. And Derek, let's make a note to actually get Charlie on here, because he would have a way better winky face than this, and I think he would appreciate that too. But he's a little bit older than that too. He's 4 years old now. But I'm going to go through some questions. I do know that we have some, so I've just got to pull up my screen here. But just be sure everyone to register. Yeah, thank you, Derek. That's amazing. I'm just going to pull these up because I know we have some stuff to talk about here. So one of the questions is, what is our focus area on Vancouver Island? So it's a great question. We really love the Cowichan Valley, Duncan specifically. It obviously, putting our money where our mouth is. We moved there. Our office is in downtown Duncan. Duncan is very small on its own. It's only 5,000 population. It's like I think it's 2 or 3 square kilometers or something like that. But it's landlocked by the CVRD and the District of North Cowichan, which ultimately make up the Cowichan Valley, which is in between 90 and 100,000 people. But it's in between Nanaimo. It's 45 minutes from Nanaimo. It's 45 minutes from Victoria. Both have been extremely hot markets. Victoria, especially over the past 5 years, has been exploding. And Nanaimo has just caught on fire in the past, I'd say, year or two. And the Cowichan Valley is just right in the middle of all of that action. And they've got a lot of place to span out. I've bought some property in Satlam area, just 10 minutes outside of downtown, which is in the Cowichan Valley. I think there's a humongous potential for growth out there. They're very aggressive in trying to solve the housing crisis and add more density where it applies. And there's some great communities that are up and coming out there. So those are the areas of focus. But right now, if I were to answer your question, we're probably staying out of the Victoria market, more so just because it's been so busy and it's so crazy. And, I also have to drive down there, which I ultimately want to limit as much as I can. South End Nanaimo, we've obviously got those 2 major projects. We used to own 2 buildings in Nanaimo, which were the first deals we ever did. We've sold one and we still own one. So Nanaimo's got a special place in our heart, especially the South End. It's a very vibrant and upcoming area. There's a lot of attention going into that area. So we definitely want to watch out for those. Vacancy rates are not changing. I don't care what anybody says. The pressure is not going away. I don't even see it going away in our lifetime, to be perfectly honest. People want to come here. It's a beautiful place. It's one of the top places in the world, let alone the country. It's got an awesome climate. It's got a beautiful lifestyle, and you pair that with all the excitement of development and excitement of business and people that are coming here. It's going to be a fantastic and fun place to be for as far as I can see. How many real estate deals have I been a part of? Well, it depends what you mean by being a part of. I've helped and consulted on many deals and with many people throughout the years. But if you go back to the first house that I posted on here, the first house that I purchased that I had on the webinar, that was back in 2004. That was the first house I ever bought. I followed that up with another house the following year. And then I kind of gave that a break while I built my welding company, and I kind of stepped out of real estate. But then I jumped right back in, probably got involved in 5 to 10, yeah, maybe 10 to 15 residential deals when I was first getting back into real estate. I thought that's the way and the direction that I wanted to go, but ultimately that was just a gateway to get me involved in commercial. I've exited out of most of my residential stuff, and now there's just a focus strictly on multifamily and developments. Multifamily and developments, we've restored or been involved in the restoration of about 10 apartment buildings, and we are now actively involved in between six we're actively involved deals on the island, and there's 6 that are in the queue for us to be taking a look at. And so, that's kind of where we're at, and that's the answer to my question. So what do I look for in a good partner? That is a great question, and it makes me think. I've been a part of many deals with many partners, and some have worked out very well, and some have worked out very not well. And I would say that probably just goes back to due diligence and making sure. I'm always character first, and I say that in my organization. Character trumps all. And I want to be able to do business with people that I connect with and that I could sit around the fire, and have a drink with and enjoy my time and enjoy my company with. If I can't do that with somebody that I'm in business with, then I don't want to be in business with them, because at the end of the day, I'm doing this for growing my network and to hang around people that I enjoy being around. But that doesn't always cut it. That's the starting point, just to get your foot in the door. The other side of it is just being involved with people that actually add value to the deal and to my business. And I want to be able to add value to people that I'm helping grow, as long as they're adding value to me by being involved and caring and wanting to grow with me. Those are the partners I'm looking for when I'm consulting and adding people to my plate. And that's what I'm looking for in partners that are helping me grow. People that have been there, that have done that have done the things that I haven't done and that I want to do. People that have the ability to structure the deals and take things off of my plate, but ultimately filling those gaps. What are you good at? That's what you should be answering when you're looking at any potential partnership, is what are the things that I'm good at and that I enjoy doing, and what are the things that I'm not very good at and that I don't enjoy doing. And your partners, the character first aspect is just getting them in the door, but they should bring to the table the parts that you are not very good at or don't enjoy doing. Because if you go and get a partner that is good at and enjoys the same things that you do, then you're both just going to do those things. And then all the other stuff is not going to be dealt with, or you're going to have to go out and hire or pay for that stuff. So in looking for a partner, you want to look to fill those gaps. And that might be multiple partners. I brought on multiple partners on multiple deals, and it was because we all brought something different to the table. And so that's the best answer I can give to that. And I don't see really any more active questions that are out there. I think there might be a couple more being added, but you know what? We'll respond to those people. Please feel free to reach out. We have our contact information. We're going to send that out in a follow-up email. If you don't have that already, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to answer any questions. Janet, she gave me a shout out on Facebook. I want to give her another shout out because I know that she's watching and she's part of the process. And I'm saying that because when I say to reach out and ask questions and don't be afraid to contact me, I mean it. All my personal contact information is in a lot of the content we send out, and I'm there to answer and to really connect with the people that are out there. And she's a prime example. I pitched on an online presentation a few months ago, and was pitching my deal, and I was in a group of investors. Some I knew, some I didn't. And right after that, I got a call from Janet. She just reached out. She sent me an email. Hey, I'm up and coming. I've never done a deal before. Which, was awesome to see that she was reaching out and she wanted to learn more and she wanted to just ask me questions about going through the deal. And I did what I said. I responded to her. But Janet is, I'd like to say probably, I can think off the top of my head in the past few years, maybe the third person that's ever reached out to me and asked me for the information I'm willing to give out for free and to help and support. And it actually turned into me being involved in a project. We worked very close together over the past 3 months to get a deal down the line. And I'm excited for you, Janet, and I'm excited for her because she just removed the subjects on her deal days ago, and now we're working on the art of structuring that deal. So anyway, that should answer a lot of the questions, but please, I mean it, please reach out, go to our website, register, topdowninvestments.com. I appreciate everybody coming out. I hope you got great value. Please give us your comments and your feedback so we can dial in our next webinar and make sure we're adding value. And don't forget, this Thursday, September 22nd, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to be diving deep into the Price Place Land Assembly, and there's some very exciting updates we want to share with you no matter what kind of viewer you are. You guys have a fantastic night. Always great to see you. And hey, hope you're doing well. Take care.